Game designer in residence, which is the greatest title ever, at the University of Santa Cruz, University of California at Santa Cruz. And thank you for inviting me to be here and for hanging out till the end of the day. So Games for Change is actually an amazingly wonderful place for me. I made this game called Train, which is up there now, and Games for Change invited Train to be here in 2009. And as you can tell, Train doesn't look like a normal game. It's not a normal game. It's a window with smashed glass. And this is a conference that featured video games, and so they invited me in my smashed glass window to appear here. And I've always felt, so it has this incredibly warm and wonderful place in my heart just because of that. So to be able to come back here and be invited to speak here is a tremendous honor for me. And so I should say, though, I didn't make Train as a game for change, per se. I made Train just because I wanted to make a game about something. I didn't think about it as a game for change any more than Steinbeck thought about books for change, or movies for change, or paintings for change, or music for change, or sushi for change. This is Jiro Dreams of Sushi. It's one of my favorite films, currently anyway. So Train for me was just a game about a subject, and it was in fact a system. I wanted to represent, if you don't know about the game, I wanted to represent a system in games, the way that system has been represented in films. So there are books about the Holocaust, there are movies about the Holocaust, there's music about it, there is art, there are, thank goodness, many, many photographs that will not let us forget what happened. And I wanted to use my medium to also represent that, and so Train represents one of the particular systems in the Holocaust. And I wanted people to feel what I felt when I thought of these things. And so part of my process was staring at this image. Oh God, this image still really screws me up. I'm staring at these images of these two little boys whose mother, you know, I imagine myself as their mom. I imagine myself as their mom, like making sure that their stars were on properly, and that they're, you know, that even the horrors were happening outside. And I thought maybe horrors were coming to my kids. I have 6 kids, believe it or not. And so I tried to imagine these as my little twins and thinking about what a mother would do every day. And I wanted somehow for the player to be able to feel that. The challenge, of course, is that I don't know what the player brings to the game, and I don't know what they're going to take away. Train was also a game about following rules, even if you take them out of a Nazi typewriter. Will we, just as humans, blindly follow the rules? And this is a picture from the typewriter for the game. And so I've seen the designer's hand in works before. This is one of my, a friend of mine and an amazing game designer, Meier. And he made a game that I've played far too much of, Civilization Revolution. If you haven't played it, do it when you get home and prepare to cancel everything for the next month. So Civ Revolution is just an amazing game. And I was playing this game as Gandhi, because Gandhi he gets lots of early access to resources. And so I love playing the game as Gandhi. And as happened, the Japanese were also in the game. The Japanese have long been, not in the real world, but in Civ Revolution, they are always my arch nemesis. And as they often do, they were on their way to a space victory. They were about to do this. And this happens, I mean, usually, sometimes I get these ridiculous versions of Civ when I'm still in medieval times, and the Japanese will fly over with an airplane. And it's really funny, and I know it's all over, right, because I'm going to be bombed. Me and my little, you know, wooden carts are going to be bombed soon. But in this case, I actually had an answer for the Japanese, because I had an ICBM. And I knew that I could stop their stupid space victory, and I also knew that it was imminent. And so there were probably ways for us to work through this. You know, like, wait a minute, Brenda, you don't have to nuke our cities. Just hold on. And of course, the game doesn't allow me that kind of, it doesn't allow me that leeway that I could say, listen, you know, I'll tell you what, if you stop the space race and you let me win, you know, we can't do that. So instead I had this option, then I picked it. And here's the unbelievable stuff. This is the hand of the designer. This is what, so Meier I could have just said, I want to nuke, what do I want to nuke? That city, boom, done, the Japanese are gone. And that's how it maybe could have happened, but let me tell you how Sid did it. So first of all, I get the cursor that looks like a nuke. You don't use this cursor for anything else in the world. Like this cursor is effectively this little nuclear bomb. And I'm going over the stage, okay, now I am. I'm going over the world, and I'm taking my cursor as I go over, and I'm actually selecting their capital city. And so I have this moment to think about it, but it goes so much further than that. So the next thing that Sid does is unlike anything else. I actually see this feel this rumble. And here's what's weird. I don't know if what I'm about to tell you really happened in the game, or if it's how my brain internalized it. That's how incredibly powerful this was. But I'm telling you 100% what I remember that happen. So I select the nuke and I pick the city and up goes the nuke and it goes up and it takes forever, right? Like this actually gives me time. I'm sitting there, you know, as a commercial game designer, I'm told like, you know, three seconds in game time equals roughly an infinity in the real world. You don't make the player wait. You gotta like go, go, go. Always have the action going. But Sid just dispensed with that. And, you know, in fact, Brenda, you're going to sit there and you're going to watch your little ICBM go up in a perspective you otherwise never see in the game. And I'm going to make you watch this. In the screen, I swear I could not find a screenshot of this, but the screen goes black or gray, right? Like actually you lose the color from the screen. And now I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it as it comes down. I'm going to watch it as it lands on their capital city. And I'm going to watch it as it decimates them. And I don't know how long this took, really, but my guess is it was probably 20 seconds that felt like an eternity. And after it had done, the Japanese were gone from the game. And that was just it, and they were wiped out. And I should have felt like, that'll teach you to put your stupid space stuff up. But instead, I felt absolutely horrible. I mean, just vile. It ruined the gameplay experience for me. Because basically what I'd done, I'd taken this guy, who's not known for his, who's not known for anything that I did, and I was on a path toward, I mean, understand, I was heading in civilization, you have domination, cultural, or tech victories, and I was headed for a domination victory. And so me with Gandhi, playing Gandhi, for God's sakes, right? I take Gandhi and I roll over civilization after civilization after civilization, and I'm crushing them all before me, right? Until the Japanese have the nerve to want to be technologically savvy, and so I decide to nuke them for their brains, right? Like, with Gandhi. And so this is quite possibly the most ridiculous thing one could do. And the thing about it is it wasn't a game for change, but it affected me profoundly. And I've never again, after that single play, ever again been able to enjoy a domination victory in what has long been my favorite game series. I cannot, and I don't care who I play. I mean, I play barbarians, basically, right? And I still don't feel good. It's like, that's right, I nuked you out of existence for trying to be cultural. You know, so I can do the cultural victories and the tech victories, but I never feel good about the domination victories. All because of the way Sid Meier orchestrated that nuke. It was profound, and it broke some game design rules that I would say that I had taken for granted. And the most brilliant thing about it is it tricked me, it lured me in, and it allowed me to be a monster, right? I mean, and mind you, I picked Gandhi. I didn't even pick like Genghis Khan, right? I picked someone who was wonderful and is known for peace and love. But it allowed me to show that. And when I think about games for change, and in a lot of the games that I've looked at, when we actually want to affect, deliberately, we set out we are going to affect change in players, I think sometimes it's, for me, it's a little too much in my face. Like, this is a game about doing this particular thing, and this is the behavior that we want you to learn. Okay, well, you've told me, and now I don't need to play the game. And sometimes it's maybe a little too in your face, right? Like, and so you think, well, like, if I had seen something like this, I would have, like, okay, well, of course Gandhi's not going to nuke somebody, right? And it wouldn't have had the power that that single event had. When I look at the games that I make and the games, and games of other people, you know, games I've made both good and bad, the places that I feel like I failed the most is when I turned into a preacher. When I started telling people, this is the path that I would like you to go down. Maybe it is the path that I see. Maybe it's the only path that I can imagine. But that path may not be somebody else's path. And I think it's important when we create game spaces, and particularly my games, as of late, tend to deal with just systems. And since they're non-digital, many of them, there's just a set of rules, and there's no storytelling or cutscenes to tell the player how I want them to feel. And this has actually been really useful to me as a game designer, because players, when they show up in a game, I mean, I might bring all kinds of baggage to my own games, right? There's a game I'm working on right now called The Black Box. I'm just building it, it's already done. Well, it's done rule-wise, but I'm building the game. And I know everything about it. In this game, it basically is personal baggage expressed in systemic form. But game players bring their own things to a game we couldn't have possibly imagined. And some of those things are profound and beautiful. And so I'll give you like a few examples. I was amazingly invited to bring training to the Game Developers Conference this year, where it sat on a table, and I had a bunch of people come through and talk to me about the game. And there were experiences there that I never, ever in a million years would have conceived of. One guy came up and asked me, and he asked if he could play the game, and you know, that's what it's there for. And so when the game was done, he sat there for about an hour afterward, and then he came up to me and he said, I just wanted to thank you for this. My family, the family that I come from, they were on both sides of the Holocaust. And it was something I needed to come to peace with, and I think that I did. And then I just walked away. And I don't know, I never would have seen that happen. But what I like about it is if a game doesn't have a prescribed path, if it doesn't constrain the player, the experiences that people will bring to the game will make manifold experiences come from the game itself. Which is what I just said. And I also have had experiences where people show up to the game and they're just stupidly angry at the game, and at the typewriter, at the absurdity of what happened. And I've had other people that were very grateful for it, and I have been super blessed, and I genuinely mean that. I mean, often they're not happy stories, but I've been super blessed to have people share stories of their family experiences that I would otherwise never ever hear. And they're difficult experiences. I mean, these are the loss of family members, the loss of culture, the loss of tremendous history that's irreplaceable. And these are the things that games can give us. And I like to think, when I think about this, and I think about myself as a game designer, I often feel like I'm constraining the player. Like, these are the walls that you can go in, and this is the way that I would like you to go. But there's two ways to look at this, right? Maybe if we figure out, can I just make something that the player can actually get outside of these walls, that the player can explore this the way that they want to explore it. There's games I've played, like Tale of Tales, The Path, and I took something very different from that than probably a lot of people did. And what I took from it was incredibly healing and important to me. This is a game that you may be familiar with, Wolfenstein 3D. So my husband created this game. He's one of the creators of this game. And I hear people come up to him all the time. And I'm sure when they were making this game, they were, I know what they were thinking. And one of the things they were thinking was that this game is going to be the great Jewish kid revenge shooter. Right? But I'll tell you something, it is. The amount of times he's had people come up to him saying, thank you so much for making Wolfenstein. I needed to blow away those Jews. I killed beep, 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 Jews. Or not Jews, did I say that? I did. Yeah. That's not at all what they said. That's not at all what they said. That's what they killed. Okay, that guy said that. Anyway, come up, I can't believe that has to be the most embarrassing thing I've ever said. All right, let's stop that. That's going to be, okay. I can focus now. They said, I killed so many Nazis because he killed so many Jews. There we go. Let me try to save myself from that. So anyway, but tons of people have come up to him and said that. And so this game actually has this whole other experience. And then here's yet another one. So this is a game that doesn't get nearly as much attention as his game Passage, but this is Jason Rohrer's game Gravitation. And this is about, this father playing with his daughter, or maybe actually in this case, I think it was his father playing with his son. I think it was Jason playing with his son. But I was sitting there, it was a really busy day, and I got a lot to do. And if you have kids, you've had these days. Like, it was in the summer, and I remember saying, honey, in a minute, okay, mommy's got to finish this. And she comes back probably in what was honestly 30 minutes, but I feel like 5 minutes has passed because I got to finish something. Okay, honey, just maybe 5 more minutes, and so on. And I just keep pushing her off, and I'm pushing her off because I have to play this game. And ironically, this game, eventually, I don't want to blow this game for you, but what happened in this game, when I finished the game, and I realized that this game basically was about that entire experience. That there's so much that I have to do that I'm pushing off the stuff that I really should be doing, which is the beauty that is this little 6-year-old girl who just wants to play ball with me while I'm busy doing all the other garbage. That is my life. Honestly, I can't even remember what the hell I was doing, but I can remember my daughter wanting to play with me. So what was more important? And I don't know that Jason necessarily made the game so that I would have that experience, nor could he have possibly known that while I'm actually living the thing at that moment that he is making this game about. And so it hit me probably 10 times harder than it otherwise would have. And this is some of the stuff that players bring to games. And we get stuck, at least I get stuck, in particular patterns, right? Like, this is the way to do things, particularly in the commercial space. The commercial space never would have invited me, hey Brenda, we got a great idea. How about a game about the Cromwellian invasion of Ireland? Like, that's never going to happen. Nor is it going to say, Brenda, would you like to make a game about the Holocaust? Like, that's probably also not going to happen. In Games for Change, these are things that we are invited to look at, more difficult topics. So, like in the commercial space, we get stuck in ruts and we get stuck in particular patterns. Here's an example. So, we have Farmtown, and actually at the time, Farmtown was amazing, right? It was like, wow, this is a really cool thing. Hey, there's lots of German board games about farming too. I like this. And it was so great that everybody said, well, we need to jump in on that action right now. And this is just one page of probably 90 Google pages about farming games. I mean, there's Farm Buddy, Farm Frenzy, Farmageddon. I mean, what? Like, really? Just a farm and slap some words on the end and you're good. And so I feel like we get ourselves in a variety of ways into these boxes that we don't even know we're standing in. It wasn't until I left commercial game development and had been in academia for a couple years that I started thinking, well, maybe I'll make something different. Instead of making a digital game, maybe I'll make an analog game. And maybe I'll make games about see if I can make some games about difficult topics. And maybe instead of making a game on a board, I'll make it on a window, or I'll make it on glass. Or the game that I'm working on presently, One Falls for Each of Us, has 50,000 figures, which is stupid and completely ridiculous from a commercial perspective. I don't care. I'm doing it, right? And I don't have a release date, and I don't have a publisher or a producer telling me how stupid it is, because I want to make the game the way that I want to make it, and I believe it'll be effective. And so I say all this to say this, which is I think it's not games that change. For at least in my case, I needed to change. We need to change the way that we look at things, because there's a zillion different ways that we can look at stuff. And to look at things from a perspective that is not our own. When I'm working on a particular subject, I will often research it for years. In the case of the Trail of Tears, there's a lot of stuff that happened there. And in a lot of individuals to research and a lot of places to visit. So I would like to be done with the game in a year. I expect that probably won't happen, and again, I don't care because I don't have a producer, or I am the producer and I don't care, so there, we went all around. And I think about, looking at games. This is a game that I made called The New World. It's about the slave trade. And looking at making games out of things we normally wouldn't make games out of. And maybe you're thinking your game needs to be, to reach 1 million people. There's one of Train, and it's been all over the place. I'm amazed to say that I shipped it off to a museum. Like, this game I made in my kitchen is going to be in a museum, which is astounding and humbling to me. And so we don't necessarily need to make things on computers in Flash that the whole world can see. We can make games the way that we feel the need to make them, and the way we feel the need to express these topics. And if there's change in it, it will happen to people. Maybe it will just be us, but it'll find its way out like Train has. I've made games. This is the game that I made about the Cromwellian invasion of Ireland. And this game has made people cry, which was not my intent, right? This is my family's history. Inside there is my mother's rosary and my grandfather's spoons, and pictures of the house that they built when they first came to America. And I also invited friends of mine who are also of Irish descent to put their stuff in this game as well. And everything you need to know about my family you are looking at right now. I've also made games without rules because I could. This is a game called Preconception, and it's Preconception, Pre-Game, Not Game, and it doesn't even have any rules, though it will the second you start looking at it. This is a game that moved me a lot. So this is a game called Dysphoria by Anna Antropy. You can play the whole game in 5 minutes if you take your ridiculous time. 10 minutes if you stop to really think, half an hour, I don't know, if you stop to really think about everything, try to internalize the experiences that are in this game. And what I liked about this, it didn't matter that this was, circa 1980 looks. Who cares? Games nowadays don't have to have fancy graphics. They don't have to have all the trappings, all the ruts that we put ourselves into in the commercial game space, and that we sometimes put ourselves into because we see somebody else made a successful game and we want to make sure we do the things that they did. This is a game that also I loved. It's called The Slow Years by Ian Bogost. And this game was done on, of all things, the Atari 2600. An assembly language, and I love that. I imagine if other artists were like we as video game developers, the canvas would have been thrown away long ago, right? Like, why do we get rid of all of our old platforms? Like, why do we just suddenly decide that they're pieces of garbage that we should never make games on ever again? When people, I made a game on a tabletop game that somehow got a technological innovation award for, and yay, apparently you can go backward and still go forward. And here's another game that I spent a lot of time thinking about. So this is Rod Humble's The Marriage. And there's lots of dynamics in this game, and I've deliberately, I know Rod, in fact we live decently close together, but I have avoided talking to him about this game because I fear what I'm now calling the Ghost Recon effect. Ghost Recon, the original one, is one of my favorite games to play. and I had all these ideas about the brilliance of the game designer, all the things that he and the AI programmers were doing to make this game clearly the best shooter I played. And I loved it. And then I met Brian, and we had this long talk, and I found out that most of it was in my head. That the game actually wasn't doing many of the things that I thought it was, but I liked the version in my head better. And so I've decided to, the different things that are happening in this game, I thought about this, the give and take of marriage and what that means to the people involved. And just spending a lot of time with this game, I have my view, carrying my baggage of what possibly this game is about. And Rod may have brought something completely different to the table. And I like to, sometimes we don't have to be, we don't have to be as direct. I said, like the No Nukes Mahatma game. I love that this game is about alcoholism wrapped in a beautiful metaphor. And so you may not even see it. But if your life has been affected by alcoholism and you play this game, you will. And I'd be surprised if you weren't moved by it. And the point I'm overall trying to make is that sometimes we don't need to be so direct. Sometimes we don't need to be so in your face. The most powerful examples of gameplay, the games that have changed me the most, have changed me precisely because I didn't see it coming. It caught me vulnerable, and it changed a part of me because I was able to go from, well, this feels perfectly fine, to, oh my God, I just nuked the Japanese for being technical, as Gandhi. And that was a fabulous cliff to fall off, and literally has changed the way that I play that game entirely. Sometimes I feel that, I'll hear people, that there's this division between commercial games and games for change. And I think it's such a false division. There's not a division there. At least for me, there's not. Without you guys, my games would be meaningless. They would still exist in my kitchen. I never intended them to really, well, I mean, 2 of them are in museums now, which is incredible to me. And if it hadn't have been for Games for Change saying, first of all, not just the conference, but people who are in this movement of making games that can affect social change, if they hadn't have said, listen, we're going to make games about some topics that commercial games would laugh you out of the room about. This is where I can draw so much energy from. Every game can be turned, every topic can be turned into a game, and every game can affect change. And then for giving me this table on which to display my game. And I feel like commercial games, on the flip side, offer processes and all kinds of things. This is the polish. This is how we get players in. For me, Civilization Revolution, that moment with Gandhi and the nuke, it sounds ridiculous that those words are in the same sentence, remains my most powerful moment in a game. And it remains so, I believe, because it was at the nexus of commercial games and serious games. And that's where I would like to see many games be. And so it's not necessarily, I feel like, the games that change people, but the games themselves that need to change. Thank you.